The Daily. Today is Wednesday, March 18th, 2026. My name is Elliot Moore. I'm a resident here at Church Where You Are, and I'm so excited to be joining you this morning. We are in day 3 of our series, I Am Jesus, the Bread of Life. But before we go into the devotion this morning, let me know in the chat where you're joining us from. We have people from all over the country that get to join us here at Church Where You Are. So just throw it in the chat where you're from, and you might find somebody that's a little bit closer than you think. Today's devotion is titled, Don't Be Afraid. But before we get into that, I just want to talk about a thing that I heard. I heard a quote once by scientist Werner Heisenberg, the man who developed quantum mechanics. And he said, the first gulp from the glass of natural sciences will turn you into an atheist. But at the bottom of the glass, God is waiting for you. I want to read that one more time. And again, quantum mechanics is something that I don't even understand, right? I couldn't talk about it for more than 2 minutes. But it sounds smart, and he's a scientist. So listen to this quote. Werner Heisenberg said, the first gulp from the glass of natural sciences will turn you into an atheist. But at the bottom of the glass, God is waiting for you. For example, the Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang Theory is a theory on how our universe was created. And it says, the universe began as one single tiny point. And that point for the last 380,000 years has been expanding. See, it's this idea that our whole universe, everything that exists, was one tiny point. I've heard things as small as a pinhole, something that a pin could fit in. Our whole universe started as that, and it has been expanding ever since. And it is a fact that our universe is expanding. But again, imagine that, our universe, the cosmos, all of the galaxies, has one tiny point. And that's how it began and has been expanding ever since. Maybe. But I want to ask, does this contradict God? Does this go against God? If this idea is true, does it go against what we know about God? No, it doesn't. This doesn't disprove God. Because it says, in the beginning, there was a little point. Well, how'd that point get there? God. If this is true, God created that little point and has allowed it to expand ever since. In fact, the very first sentence of the Bible says, in the beginning, God. For this little point to exist, there has to be a beginning. And the Bible says, in the beginning, God. So even though it may not have been a tiny point as the Big Bang Theory suggests, it was God carefully crafting it in the 6 days and resting on the 7th. The idea that our universe has a beginning doesn't go against God. In fact, it goes with him. Because the Bible says, in the beginning, God. Here's another one. There are 63,779 cross-references in the Bible. Which means a point from later in time or farther down the line in time reference something in the past. Or a fact or a statement from the past references something that's in the future that came true. A cross-reference is just if I said something in the future or past and those came true, those connected in through longer points in time. A cross-reference just, again, is mentioning something and later it comes to fruition, or people in the future referencing something that happened in the past. There's 63,779 cross-references in the Bible. And the Bible is not just a book. It's 66 books written by 40 different people across 1,500 years and on 3 continents in 3 different languages. And again, I know I read through that kind of fast, so I'm going to read it again. The Bible has 63,779 cross references. It mentions something from the past or future that came true. There's basically a cross-reference. It's a connection. And the Bible is 66 books written by 40 different people across 1,500 years on 3 different continents in 3 different languages. And it all has one unified story. It all has one uniformed story. One idea about a man that lived. The man that was God. That's impossible. That is impossible. And they weren't calling each other on the phone. They weren't flying planes, getting there, talking about it, writing it down. It's impossible. It's impossible to be written in 3 different languages, 1,500 years apart, 3 continents, 40 different people, and 66 books, and have one unified message, one unified idea about this person, about this man, this God. That's impossible. So is that science or is that God? Well, it's a fact that these things happened. It's a fact that it's more than one book. It's a fact how long it took to write this book and all those things I mentioned. Those are facts. Those can be proven by science. But it was illustrated by God. This Bible, this 66 books, were written by men under the authority of God. And that's science and religion. That's science and God. They shouldn't have to contradict each other. We should be done with this argument of, well, does science or God really, which one's true? Science or God? They're both true. Science is the study of. The study of. You notice that all of them have ology, which means the study of. Biology, Scientology, whatever you want to say, right? This ology means the study of. Even theology, the study of God. Science and the Bible, science and God do not contradict each other. In fact, I have one more, and this isn't to convince you that God is real. If you're on the science side and you believe in science and you say you don't believe in God, fine. This is not to convince you. It just is an amazing example of how our God has illustrated all the things of this world for us. It's an amazing example of God's power. Here's one more. The Bible says, do not be afraid. 365 times. Does that number ring a bell? The Bible says, do not be afraid. 365 times. It's because God knew we needed a reminder every single day not to be afraid. 365, if you didn't figure it out already, is how many days we have in the year. I don't believe that to be a coincidence. That's science. That's a fact. That's math. 365 is a number. It's math. But that's our God carefully constructing these things for us. He cares about us more than we can understand. We could go through thousands of these, and I'm not smart enough to do that, but we could go through thousands of examples like this. This is a great reminder that our God is powerful and our God genuinely cares about us. And again, I think this whole devotion this morning is just a reminder not to be afraid. John 6, verse 16 through 21 says, that evening Jesus and his disciples went down to the shore to wait for him. But as darkness fell and Jesus still hadn't come back, they got into the boat and headed across the lake towards Capernaum. Soon a gale swept down upon them and the sea grew very rough. They had rowed 3 or 4 miles when suddenly they saw Jesus walking on the water toward the boat. They were terrified, but he called out to them, don't be afraid, I am here. Then they were eager to let him in the boat, and immediately they arrived at their destination. Psalms 34, verse 4, I prayed to the Lord, and he answered me. He freed me from all my fears. Isaiah 41, verse 10, do not be afraid, for I am with you. Don't be discouraged, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will hold you up with my victorious right hand. And 2 Timothy 1, verse 7, for God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of of power, love, and self-discipline. This morning, I know this isn't a super long or super complex daily, but this should be a reminder to not be afraid. This should be a reminder that our God cares for us. Again, those things I read in the beginning, those facts I listed, is not to convince these people that don't believe that our God is real. And I don't want you to use these facts, these statistics, to shove it down their throat. That's not why we're here. It's just a reminder that our God cares for us so greatly, and His creation will take an infinite amount of time to study, and we'll never be able to fully understand it. But He is with us, and because of that simple fact, we shouldn't be afraid. Thank you so much for joining me on the daily this morning. I would encourage you, if you haven't already, just to share this with someone. Share this with someone you think it might help or just needs some encouragement. Please, if you need prayer, put it in the chat or the comment section or wherever you're watching. If you're watching on the Church Where You Are app, you can hit the request prayer button. We have a team that would love to pray over you. And if you've done that in the past, please know that we are praying over you, and thank you for your courage for reaching out. Again, if you need prayer, don't be afraid to ask. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope to see you tomorrow and throughout the week for another edition of the Daily at the same